Good morning, folks. Welcome to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, your host, and we're in luck because we're on the campus at Kansas State University. We're in Throckmorton Hall, but more importantly, we're at the Kansas State University Soil Testing Lab in the Department of Agronomy. Talking with Dr. Dorivar Ruiz-Diaz, our Extension Soil Fertility Specialist and Director of the Soil Testing Lab. So I think you're going to be interested in how the Soil Testing Lab works, so we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, and with us we have Dorivar Ruiz-Diaz, our Soil Fertility Extension Specialist and Director of the Soil Testing Lab. And if you haven't figured out by now, we're in the Soil Testing Lab. So Dorivar, kind of explain to us the mission of the Soil Testing Lab.
Yes, Jim. The Soil Testing Lab really has a couple main missions, and one of them, of course, is to provide analytical service to farmers, extension, and homeowners, basically the test results for soils, tissue, and water samples. But the other aspect of the lab is also providing recommendations for producers in terms of what to do with those numbers, what kind of fertility program they should be doing based on those results. And I think that's perhaps one of the most important aspects also that we do here in the lab, and we provide that information.
So the Soil Testing Lab is just doing the actual analysis is just half of the issue. It's the recommendations and what the producers or homeowners do.
Absolutely, and like I say, that's very important part of the mission that we have, because providing accurate information in terms of specific information for soils and environment that we have here in Kansas is a key component, and for that we really require to have extensive research, to do correlation, calibration, make sure that soil tests that we are using in Kansas are the appropriate ones for the soils that we have here in the state.
I want you to define that correlation, calibration aspect you just mentioned there. So if someone from Texas sent you a soil sample, what do you do?
Yes, again, our recommendation is specific for Kansas. So the way we develop that is, like I say, with research, and research been going on for many years at Kansas State University. And that correlation calibration basically means that we are evaluating the soil test in terms of what kind of response we are seeing in the crops, both nutrient uptake and yield response. So when we have a number, say a soil test phosphorus of 20, we know that what that means for our crops, for our conditions here. And for that, we basically need to develop field research to provide that kind of information. And that value can be different from state to state. Again, depending on
different types of soils,
different types of soils, different types of conditions, different types of crops. And again, all of that has an effect in terms of that recommendation that we are providing.
Well, I want to, you just don't put one location out there. You have to do this at many different parts of the state, different soil types, and we're talking about 0, 20, 40, 60, 80 rates, right?
Absolutely.
Explain that a little bit.
Yes, and that's very important, Jim, because in our case in Kansas, we do have a lot of multiple environments and soils as we go from east to west.
Sure.
And actually, all recommendations reflects that. Recommendations can change slightly when you are in eastern, for example, southeast Kansas, or if you are in northwest Kansas, because of the soils, because of the conditions. So what you are saying in terms of being able to develop, establish research in multiple locations is going to be a key to be able to capture that difference that we have in environment and soils across the state.
We got to take a break right now, so hang on. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Watch Ag AM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com. Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego is driven by the spirit of American ingenuity. Come in for a new Chevrolet car, truck, or SUV. If we don't have exactly what you want, we'll find it for you. And we also have a great selection of used cars. We make sure you have an easy, fun, and transparent sales experience that saves you time and money. But if you want high-pressure salesmen and hours spent in the finance office, you'll just have to go elsewhere. Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're making car buying great again. That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. With us we have Dorival Ruiz-Diaz, our soil extension specialist and director of the soil testing lab. We were talking just before the break about the calibration studies you do around the state, and many of them over many years. Tell me how you do the increment. How do you know where you get that response?
Yes, a typical study will obviously evaluate, like you mentioned, multiple rates of nutrients, and we're talking about phosphorus, potassium, and so on. And so basically, again, we want to be able to correlate the value of soil tests that we have with the response that we are seeing to fertilizer applications. And for that, we not only need multiple locations, but we also need multiple rates of fertilizer to make that evaluation, basically, in terms of the response.
So where you get the, I'm thinking of that optimal curve, that point of no return, or
Absolutely, and that's ultimately is one of the key things that we want to develop. But again, it's important to keep in mind that there's a lot of work behind developing that kind of information. Like you say, multiple locations across a state like Kansas that has multiple environments and soils is very important. And again, many years. It's not just me. Many years. And many people here at Kansas State University contribute to develop that kind of information.
Well, the K-State lab is not a big lab by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of labs, or a number of labs around the region that are much bigger. But talk a little bit about the volume and how it works. Basically.
Yes, again, our lab is basically is probably a small lab comparing, like you say, to other labs. In terms of volume of samples, we are probably analyzing about 30,000 to 40,000 soil samples per year, about 15,000 to 20,000 tissue samples, and 5,000 to 10,000 water samples. So those are maybe the main things that we focus on. Of course, we do get other type of samples, but soils, tissue, and water samples are kind of the main things that we look at. Our main clientele will be our extension system in the state. So extension agents, they will be sending samples to us from producers, as well, again, as homeowners. But we also work obviously directly with producers. Some producers will send their samples to us, and we will provide recommendations directly to them, again, based on our research. The other aspect, again, like I mentioned, is water, and again, that's as a
kind of goes hand in hand with the fertility issue.
Yes, it does, and especially when we are talking about the environmental side of things, because there's an economic aspect to being able to put the right amount of fertilizer, which is very important, but also we don't want to have too much nutrients out there in terms of a potential risk of water quality concerns, runoff, and so on. So again, we do have some significant amount of samples for water, as well as the environmental side of things for soil testing.
You mentioned you do homeowners and farmers and researchers as well. So kind of break that down. Is it half or better that are farmers and the county agent extension system, and what is it? I don't know.
Yes, more than half probably of all what we do is coming from extension and farmers, and then a smaller amount of what we are doing is research. And again, these are providing service to researchers, not just here at Kansas State, but actually other universities in Kansas, and even out-of-state researchers that send their samples to us.
We got to take a break. Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways. Of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at KFRM.com or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Hello friends, I'm Ernie Rodina.
And I'm Dawn Dawson with the Better Horses Radio Show.
For over 9 years, we've been bringing the Better Horses Radio Show to markets all across the Midwest. We talk about God, lots about horses.
We talk about cows, we talk about horse health, we talk to top trainers, and we even talk about Roy Rogers.
We're having a blast with Better Horses Radio Show and would love to take it to a market near you.
So visit our website at betterhorsesradio.com and let us or your local radio station know you'd like to hear it in your area.
The Better Horses Radio Show is unbelievable.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, and Dorvar Ruiz-Diaz didn't run off during that break, and I'm glad that you didn't too. So, Dorvar, let's say I'm a producer out there, and I know what the wheat prices are, and I know what the corn prices are. They're not really good at this particular point. So I'm in the mindset that I don't want to spend a whole lot of money on this crop that's coming up, or next year. Is that a good thought process that I have, or should I be thinking otherwise?
That's a very good point, Jim, and actually we have that comment pretty often. Obviously, producers are looking at ways to cut costs as much as possible, but research actually from colleagues at the Department of Ag Econ here at Kansas State University shows that soil testing perhaps is the one thing that is even more important to be soil testing at these, under these conditions of low grain prices and tough economic situations.
That's almost counterintuitive, but it's not really.
It is, but if you think about it, Jim, basically, when you have again tight budgets, you want to be able to make the right decision, and to make the right decision, you really need to have good information. And soil testing, that's basically what's giving you. It's giving you the accurate information in terms of what you have there already in terms of nutrients. And obviously, you don't want to put more fertilizer than you have to. On the other hand, if you are short of some nutrients, you want to make sure in putting that nutrient so you are not losing yields, because
that may be the limiting factor.
That may be the limiting factor. And so at the same time, obviously, you don't want to be leaving bushels out there that you can capture with proper nutrient management. So again, that's really the key there. And like I said, there have been some studies evaluating that. And again, the value of soil testing, if anything, has a lot more value in times where the importance of the information is critical, like now.
Well, also, you think about after obviously we didn't have a drought this year. We did for a while, but then that cleared up. But in drought years, you can really have a lot of carryover in nutrients. And if you're just used to putting on X amount of nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium, you could be running into some problems.
Absolutely, and that's actually one part of the mission that we have here in the lab, the soil testing lab, is to look at that kind of things. And a few years ago, during a severe drought, we looked at a little bit of a survey of how much residual nitrogen we have in some fields in the state. And it's very impressive, Gene. You can find things anywhere from 100 pounds to 150, 200 pounds of nitrogen in the field. Obviously, in that kind of situation, your
wheat wouldn't need anything. Your milo probably wouldn't need anything.
Yes.
Maybe corn just a little. Maybe
a little. And again, you want to know that. You want to know that and be able to save money on that fertilizer. And obviously, soil tests can give you that information. But you mentioned, this year we have good yields. It's also happening. It's also important to look at soil tests. Why? Because we're probably going to have very little nutrients carry over. So that's also important to know. That means maybe we need to make a little bit more adjustments next year as well. So it's basically not just when you have drought conditions, but also when you have good yields. Remember, we are removing more nutrients as well when you have good yields. So again, soil test is going to be able to, it's going to give you that information to make those adjustments.
Dorvar, we got to take a break. Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn, for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Tarwater Farm and Home has been family owned and operated since its beginning in 1978. What you need for farm and agriculture, lawn and garden, clothing and footwear, and so much more. You'll be surprised at what you'll find in this huge store. They have what you need and lots of it. So come take a look. You'll discover that customer service is first and foremost. Always has been with the Tarwaters. Tarwater Farm and Home, 4107 North Topeka Boulevard.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, and with us we have Dorivar Ruiz-Diaz, the director of the Soil Testing Lab. Dorivar, in a lab situation, you have various technicians, various machines. How do you know you're accurate?
Absolutely, and that's a very, very important question, Jim. And actually, we get that question very often from producers. Mm-hmm. Is the number I'm getting, is it good to make that decision? Because, I mean, the decision we are making is going to be have significant implications, economical implications. So there's really two components to that, Jim. And one of them is what happens in the field, how we are collecting those samples. That's going to be a key first step.
You don't give your hired man or woman the bucket and say, go take a soil sample and just walk in the gate and dig right there. You know, one sample for 160 acres, right?
Yes, absolutely. We always emphasize that, but it still happens sometimes. And like you mentioned, it's very important to collect samples that are going to be representative of the field.
Right.
That means we want to take multiple subsamples in an area that we are treating, and we want to pay attention to a few other things as well. The number of subsamples that we are collecting, the instruments that we are using. We want to make sure we use plastic buckets and buckets that are clean, that are not going to be contaminating our soil samples. Right. We want to make sure we are collecting samples at the right depth. Again, our recommendations are going to be based on certain sampling depth. For Kansas, we use 6 inches for the immobile nutrients, 24 inches for the mobile nutrients.
Like nitrogen.
Like nitrogen. So again, that's going to be also another key aspect. And then, of course, once we collect those samples, we want to make sure, and we are not sitting in the pickup for several days and that sort of thing. So we treat that sample well until it gets to the lab. Right. Once the sample gets here in the lab, we do have a very strict protocol, steps that we follow, and actually our lab is certified with a national program, which is the North American Proficiency Test program. And this is one example, Jim, that they send us some samples that we test several times a year, and they basically provide us feedback in terms of how we are doing, in terms of the accuracy. So again, that variability in terms of values here in the lab, chances are very low that we're going to have issues. Most of the time, it's usually anything that happens in the field and to the point that the sample gets here.
Okay. Thanks, Dorivar. We've got to take a break. Folks, we'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
As fourth-generation farmers themselves, Heinen Brothers Ag Service understands the risk and rewards of farming. So when it comes to quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia, call Heinen Brothers Ag today, 800-760-4964.
Clyde Sutton, Ness City, Kansas. Lived on this place all my life. About a year and a half ago, got to where I couldn't saddle a horse. The pain was terrible. Read about stem cell. First it wasn't for me, then they started doing neck and back. Before I went down to Manhattan, the pain I was having from my neck down to my hand was curling my hand back. Some people had thought I almost had a stroke, and my shoulder had drawed up. I couldn't lift, I couldn't sleep, I really couldn't do anything, and was scheduled to be operated on, but was scared of the knife, I guess. Went and had it done. As you can see, I saddled a horse. I'm still building fence. Love to shoot a shotgun rifle, and I'm able to participate, not like I used to, but nevertheless I can do the things I used to do. And I want to personally thank the doctors, nurses, staff at Kansas Regenerative Medicine for the opportunity they give me to have my life back again.
That's My Farm is brought to you in part by Tallgrass Commodities. Big enough to serve, small enough to care.
Welcome back to That's My Farm. I'm Jim Schroyer, and with us we have Dorivar Ruiz-Diaz, our Extension Soil Fertility Specialist and Director of the Soil Testing Lab. Dorivar, we've talked a lot about the lab, the mission, and that sort of thing, but how does the sample get here?
Yes, that's a very good question, Jim, and there are really many options for a producer or homeowner to send the samples. One of them that is very common is through the county agent, the extension office. Basically, the producer can work with the county agent and the extension office at the county level, and they can send the samples to us. Another approach is also for the producer to send the samples directly to us. Mm-hmm. Actually, in our website, we give information for shipping instructions, as well as provide shipping labels, actually, that you can print at home, mm-hmm. put it to the box, and that will get to us pretty much overnight.
From the time you receive a sample, how long does it take before the producer or the homeowner gets the results?
Yes, so once the sample gets here, we usually have a turnaround time of about 2 days. So within 2 days, you should get back results. And right now, there's a few ways the results are getting to the customer. One of them is, again, through the website. Actually, the customer can set up an account, and we are giving all the results, all the status of the process in that website. Mm-hmm. But also, we are sending an electronic report via email. So as soon as the results are ready, mm-hmm. we provide the recommendations. We review the recommendations, make sure they are accurate, mm-hmm. and then immediately we send it via email. That way, that's available to the producer immediately, basically. Again, we can also provide the reports via regular mail, but more and more, we don't have many people requesting that.
You keep the sample on hand for 2 or 3 months?
That's right, and that's one of the main reasons why we do that, is because, again, we want to give some time to the customer to look at those results, make sure they don't have any additional questions, because if they do have more questions, like you say, we keep actually the sample here for about 3 months. Mm-hmm. So if they have any questions about, they may want to look at other nutrients, for example, we can go back and retest and provide additional information on that same sample. That way the producer don't have to go back and collect samples from the field.
One question I used to get all the time, and I'm sure you do too, is how often should I soil test?
Yes, and that's another very important question. And typically, we will recommend for pH, organic matter, P and K, at least.
Basics. That's the basic.
That's a basic. Yeah, that's a basic analysis, and that will be at least every 3 to 4 years. Okay. And again, depending on how things are and how much information we have, we may even need to do that more often. Mm-hmm. Again, if you are a farmer that you are just starting to work on a specific field, you may not have much information on that.
Right.
So in that kind of situation, you may want to be looking at soil testing maybe every 2 years until you have a better feeling about what kind of values we have
baseline,
there. A baseline, yes.
Okay. Dorivar, I really appreciate you taking time to tell us a little bit about the K-State Soil Testing Lab. We appreciate it. I'm sure producers enjoyed that. Folks, thank you for being with us, and don't forget, next week about this same time, we're going to have another show of That's My Farm. See you then.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.